Hello, welcome to That County Show, and I have two very special guests with me today. We have Tom Clayton, who is the Public Information Specialist for Larimer County.
Happy to be here.
And we also have, and this is kind of weird, we have Denny LaRue as a guest today, and she has been our Community Information Manager for a number of years, and that's what we're here to talk about. We're here really to talk about Denny. Denny has retired from Larimer County. It's a very, very special time for her. We're going to learn what she has been doing in the past and how she helped us in developing a community information program. And we're going to talk a little bit about your future as well. So let's just get started. You left Larimer County.
I did. I retired. I've worked at Larimer County 20 years now, and before that I was in radio for 21 years. So I've put in a long time, a lot of work. So I decided that it was time to take a break and do other things.
So let's go back in time.
Okay.
Let's go back to your days in radio.
Okay.
Those who probably did not live here or are familiar with the mid to late 70s probably are not aware, and I'm not making this up, and Tom, you probably can vouch for this. You had a very big fan base in this area, in northern Colorado, especially among guys who never even, they didn't see your face, which probably would have made it better. But everyone said, we couldn't wait to listen to Denny LaRue because you had this sultry, beautiful, clear voice. And you did have this fan base, and you were very popular. And I'm sure you knew that.
Well, you know, when I first started in radio in October of '74, I was very nervous, and I really kind of just spoke from here because I didn't know how to use my voice differently, and it was scary. It was kind of scary at first, but you know, I always loved playing music for people. I mean, it was just something I liked sharing. I'd find, you know, an album and I'd, hey, listen to this. And so that was kind of a natural transition to do that on air. And of course you're on air, you're behind a mic, but you can't see anybody. So I actually found that easier, where some people find that intimidating. But the rule is that you know, when you're on the radio like that, you're just talking to one person because everybody's listening with their own set of ears. So if you can connect with one person, you're probably connecting with more. And
did you start with music, playing records?
I did. It was underground FM music, and it was totally unformatted. It was totally exactly what we wanted to play, mostly what our listeners wanted. So it was very symbiotic, and I think that's why KTCL was so popular, because it was all about the listeners. And everybody, the listeners and the DJs, everybody were in their 20s.
So when did you switch to NPR or doing public radio?
I went to KUNC and started there in December of '84.
Okay, and that's when I, moved here in Fort Collins, and so I know that part of you. So why don't you talk more about that?
Well, and that they actually hired me as a music DJ at KUNC because they had never hired a commercial radio person before, and they were starting to branch out a bit. And I did that for about a year and a half, but with a journalism background. And at KTCL, I had done comedy news early on. And so I really liked news and information, always did. So I transitioned into hosting, newscasts, and then eventually All Things Considered, and then eventually Morning Edition. And I loved it. And I did a lot of feature productions. That was just great. And one of my favorites was I got to be artist in residence at Rocky Mountain National Park for a week. And while I was there, I lived up there in the park for a week. And when I was there, I produced a 10-part series on the park and the Gateway community. And this was mid-'80s, probably '85, '86. And so it was very, very fun to do. I went back and got an award from the Associated Press for that. And we ran it, of course, on KUNC, and it was a great career there. I liked it a lot.
And like I said, I can speak for myself. Those are the times that I remember listening to your voice and saying, "Boy, it'd be nice to meet her sometime."
People used to describe my voice on KUNC News as, authoritative yet non-threatening. So it was believable, but not in your face.
When I first heard it on KTCL, that's when I first heard her voice. I was listening to this great set of music, and then this voice came on, and it was Denny's, and loved to hear her voice every time she broke, but it was the same
Yeah.
following. I was one of those people that followed her fan base.
Well, and I will say that I worked every shift at KTCL, morning, afternoon, evening, overnights, everything. And one of my favorite things that I remember was this is the bond between the audience and the DJs. We were all crazy about it. And I had this guy call me about 4 a.m. He was a milker. He was milking his cows. Just starting to get out there to milk. And he said, my cows want to hear some music.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, what do they want to hear? And he goes, well, my cows would really like to hear Inagata Davida. And I said, great, I'll do that for them. And I did. It was that kind of relationship with the audience. Somebody would call and say, it just stopped snowing and the sun came out. Can you play some sun music?
Yeah.
It's like, sure. It was very interactive.
The better
lot of
things,
fun.
the good things about that time, I guess, if you were a DJ, was that if you played some of those songs like In God Davida, they were 9 to 10 to 12 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
You take
no
a break.
problem. Yeah.
A nice little break.
Yeah. There were a couple songs. Donna Summers had like a 26-minute song or something. There were a couple you go take a break, But yeah, it was very, very free form, I will say. Yeah. very free form.
So we're probably going to skip a few years,
Okay.
and then you end up with Larimer County. Tell us how that happened.
Well, I had gone to KCSU as a program director there. I was in the midst of getting my master's degree at Colorado State University in technical communication, and it was an MS program, and I was still working full time. So my weekends were studying, and my work days were. But it was difficult, challenging, I should say, because I was doing morning edition and had afternoon classes, and would drive from Greeley to Fort Collins, and it was, a stretch. So. Working at KCSU was a great adventure. At that time, it was very much a town gown operation. So lots of town residents were volunteers. When the students would go on break, they would be on the air, and it was a great experience. And so I worked there, and then Colorado State University decided to lay off all the professional staff and make it a student station only. And so I had about a 3 or 4 month break because I knew that I was going to get laid off for about 6 months. And I had been working on Help Preserve Open Spaces as one of their volunteers, and I became one of the local spokespeople on that issue. And it, was very, I think it won by 66% of the ballot. It was very popular. And I think the commissioners and Frank Lancaster took note of that, and they had a person who was called the Courthouse Expansion Coordinator, and he left. And so actually Nancy Wallace told me about the job. He said, he left, you ought to apply for it. So I did, and I got it. And I think coming off that ballot issue as a volunteer, working on that, because the whole job for the first year with the county was about helping citizens understand the need for the Justice Center and the county offices building and the jail expansion and the Loveland remodel and all of it. And you were very involved in that whole process.
Right. And the backstory on that is that when you were hired, I remember Frank, who was one of those guys in the 70s that was a big fan of Denny, and said,
and when I was at KUNC, he was one of my sources because he ran the landfill in solid waste.
Right.
Yeah.
So he was very excited that you accepted that position with the county.
It was fun.
It was fun. So, and were you successful the first time, or was it?
The first year it was not, and we went back and we asked voters. That was '96. We asked voters, well, what happened? What was not working with this? And they said, basically, we don't want. It's not that we don't support these issues because we know this is an important thing, but we don't want it all bundled together. It was all one ballot issue. This one ballot issue called for all these different buildings, and they said we don't want it bundled together. We want to decide what's important to us, program by program. So we took all the issues, and another team worked on it in '97, and then it got separated where all the law enforcement buildings were on one issue and all the judicial and county offices were on another, and they both passed.
Yeah.
So that was the year in '97 where they had wanted this position, public information person at the county, and I know Frank was concerned they would get pushback both from the media that the person would be a wall, and from the commissioners that somebody would be talking for them. But it all worked out great. So they put the job out, and I applied in just January of '97.
Right.
I started.
And I don't know if either one of us said it, but being Frank Lancaster, the county manager at that time.
Oh, excuse me. Yes.
So
Yes, sorry about that.
no,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
right.
you know, that was one of the things that Denny would always remind us. I mean, that was if we would say a first name, we would have to remember. So now we'll have to have someone else
Remind
remind
me.
us. Yeah, remind you.
You know, and I'm big on details. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the whole part about being a public information person is that you want to have the right information.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have somebody has to have the right number and the details correct, and that's the job of the public information person.
right.
So I always take that very seriously. It's just one of those things.
So if we skip a few more years
Uh-huh.
down,
I want to say something though about those early years in the '90s at Larimer County.
go for it.
It was unbelievable how many groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, dedications,
Of all the buildings.
cornerstone layings with the Masons, open houses, tours. It was year after year. There were years of that. Every year there was multiple celebrations surrounding the Justice Center, and then the ranch, and the jail, and then the courthouse offices building. It was just amazing how many of those events there were in those years.
Yeah. Well, that's because you were successful in having all those buildings built.
Yeah, exactly. we all were. The team that was on board in '97 really did a great job.
So, do you remember when we decided to do that county show, that Larimer County show?
Gosh, I don't remember the exact year, but
Yeah.
it was early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
And do you have a favorite? I mean, you're thinking about it. Do you remember any of those shows as being a little different, or because we did it when we started, we had different type of guests. We actually had guests throughout the county, and kind of evolved into more of having guests from our departments and from the organization. But I remember the crossword puzzle guy.
Oh, he was fantastic. He was fantastic. The crossword puzzle guy, and he got us to watch that movie.
Right.
That was
right.
about crossword puzzles, and we were actually on the edge of our seat watching this. Who's going to win this crossword puzzle championship? And you know, in those early days of that Larimer County show, one thing that was really fun, we started off very complex.
We did.
Lots and lots of on-location shots of what was called B-roll, which is background video, extra video. And we did a lot of people on the street interviews. And those were great. We'd ask people, what does the commissioner do? Or we'd ask people all kinds of questions. Do you
Right.
know about extension? Do you know about your taxes and how they're paid?
Right. They were usually, it was an intro to whatever topic we were going to do.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting, and I think it was probably interesting when you talk to people on the street, those that are informed versus those that really are not, and hopefully our shows inform people. I think that, which I think, and maybe I would like you to elaborate more on the value of that Larimer County show.
Well, I have had people comment to me and send me emails and stuff about the show on Channel 14 because they learn about county government. And there aren't a lot of opportunities. You can go to meetings. Certainly, you can go to Larimer County 101 now, but that's only 6 years old.
Yeah. So why don't you talk about 101 for a
Oh,
second,
okay.
since because you developed that.
Yeah, and that is one of my one of the things I'm most proud of, I think, is Larimer County 101. It's a 9-week course for citizens. They meet once a week for 3 hours a week for 9 weeks in the spring, in early summer, and Tom's very involved in that.
Yes.
And about the optimum number, we've tried bigger and smaller groups, and the optimum number is about 30, 32. And citizens learn about county government from the people who do it, who provide the services, the experts. And we go on location, and people ask questions, and we
Right.
make it interactive, and we have games and role playing, and it's just astounding. We do a survey at the beginning and the end of class about your confidence in county government, and every single year we did it. We did the survey about 5 of the 6 years so far. Every year it goes up a whole point from the beginning to the end. Their confidence, the more people know about how their government works, the more confident they are in
Yeah,
that government. because
Yeah.
they understand why decisions are made and how hard decisions are to make.
Yeah. And you're going to continue your role, right?
Absolutely, yes. And one of the things that we find is that throughout the class, the members say, "I never knew you did that. That's amazing that you guys do all this stuff that you do." And so they're just blown away by the amount of services that are provided. You know, and we always liken it to county services being like an operating system in your computer. You just never see it doing what it does, but it's back there doing those things so that you have roads to drive on and a place to take your trash and you know, restaurants that have been inspected, things like that.
Right, yeah. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, the city of Fort Collins has a Citizens Academy, as does the Sheriff's Department, as does the town of Estes Park. So citizens around here are very lucky. They often will take all 3 of the Fort Collins area classes for sure. And there's only 2 things we ask. We ask every class. We ask, and in the beginning, not as many hands go up. At the end, they're all laughing and all their hands are up. Who lives in Larimer County? And then who used a Larimer County service today?
Right.
And it's fun.
Well, it's always interesting to know when people do not raise their hand.
Yes.
And
yeah.
But
You do that often at citizen meetings.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it. You know, sometimes you kind of feel sad that people don't realize not only where they live, but also what services are provided by them. And maybe it's a good thing. Maybe, you know, sometimes you look at it, it's invisible, they get it, and the services are somewhat invisible in terms of who provides it. They're happy that they receive it. They know they're getting good services, so they don't really have to dig that deep. But
and that's the part of it. That's I think part of it is that the services that are provided are so good that you know it's not that they take them for granted. It's just that they're not aware of where they come from.
Right. So there's no problem. I mean, you know, so there's no issue. Yeah.
It's really, I think what's really important is that citizens have access to information and services when they need it, and that it's easy to find. And if they have to talk to somebody, that it's a good experience for them. I mean, that's a basic thing. But then it's important for people to also know about services that they don't always use, because sometimes the county needs their support.
Correct.
And if they don't know what the county's doing, it's hard to support an entity that they don't know what they do. So it's a two-edged sword there.
Yeah. Well, I think the bottom line is when they go through that class, and even those that don't, they really do appreciate the local government services that are provided, because I think we have quality services.
Very much.
Quality staff, quality services. We do a good job. So is there any particular achievement that you're most proud of?
You know, I have a lot of things. For me, basically, leaving Larimer County, the county.
That's an achievement that you're proud of.
Well, I'm going to finish that sentence. But Larimer County threw me a great going-away party, and we originally were going to do this show, and it got snowed out.
Right.
So they threw me a wonderful going-away party. I couldn't have been happier with it. And I think, what I realized that, I grew up in a military family, and my home state was Colorado. But I lived all over the world. I lived in England, I lived in Germany, I lived in Alabama, I lived in Oregon, I lived in Colorado. And in my core being, I always really wanted community. Sense of community was always really important to me. So when I came here for college, I was a resident, and I went through school. When I started in radio, and I really liked radio, and I was good at it, and it worked for me. I said, I had a journalism degree. I said, I think I'm going to keep doing this as long as I can in northern Colorado, because it really satisfied my big goal in life, and that was community. I wanted history, I wanted, community. And so I realized that when I left county government, that really I really had sort of a legacy of, community. And I feel really, really good about that. That always has been really important to me.
No, I know you just retired, so, and you're talking about your legacy. I don't think it's over, so I would ask this question, and maybe, I don't know if you thought about it or not, but What is the future of Denny LaRue?
Well, I've been a volunteer at KRFC, a local community radio station, for 13 years. So I'll keep volunteering for them, maybe even more, if I can. And I'm going to still do a talk show. So I'll be talking with county programs, about county programs, but also about community nonprofits. I'll interview them. So it'll be a broader show, which is nice. There's a mental health issue that's been out there. And I think I'm going to volunteer for that. It's a really important issue to me, a detox mental health facility. I don't know all the details yet, so I can't say it, but that issue is really important, so I'm going to volunteer for that. I'm going to go cross-country skiing and hiking as much as possible. That's really something I enjoy doing. Other than that, I have a lot of just projects that have been put on hold for a long time, and I'm going to tackle those. And specifically, I can't say what's next, but you know, I like to stay busy. I'm interested, you know, in lots of stuff.
So we're almost ready to wrap this up. So I'm going to ask you, any closing comments, anything that you want to say?
I will say it's been great working with both of you. And I'll start with you, Neil. You have brought such a great sense of humor to my work and what I do. And when we first started doing videos and things like that, you were just so creative that it opened the door for doing some really fun. We did some comedy videos on how a bill becomes a law. We did a lot of fun things. And my most favorite thing, I think, though, is when we went to a virtual conference with municipal government. And there was about 15 of us in this big room watching this big screen. It was a virtual conference. It was online. A la kind of off Second Life. It was that kind of thing.
Right.
And Neil,
avatars.
Neil, we had one avatar, and it was you. You had an avatar, and you were our conference representative. And it was so funny. We were just learning how to do these things, and Neil's arm went up, and we couldn't get Neil's arm to go down. And he was in the big dark cave.
We're talking about the avatar, not me.
The avatar at this virtual conference, and it was hysterical. That was one of my most favorite things, because social media was always a challenge. But just working with you and your sense of humor and your intelligence and knowledge and
Okay, that's enough.
no, it's been great. And Tom, you two have been just great to work with. And the thing about you is when we reorganized what you did to social media being your bailiwick, you had to learn a lot of new things, as I did, and you really just took it in hand. And you do all of our Facebook and all of our Twitter for Larimer County Government site, and you've been doing that for a while now. And you're kind of getting known for your beautiful pictures, and you love doing it, right?
No, I'm very happy to do it. It's another tool that's in the toolbox to try and get information out to people. And, you know, everybody has their preferred medium that they like. And, you know, that's just an addition to being able to make that information out and try to get it out as clear as we can to folks. And yeah, I like to try and put up pictures that kind of break up the monotony of all the information that we push out. But yes, and I did have to learn a lot.
Well, I got to say, I'm going to miss you both professionally and personally. I mean, you've always been a pleasure to work with. We had a lot of fun together.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, we would go down to the legislators and do some both serious and fun things with them.
Day in the life of the legislature.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. And Denny brought up that one we were interviewing.
Don Rostica.
Right, he was giving blood.
He looked all hooked up.
The blood was
Got a
coming out,
microphone in
and,
his
and he was answering all the questions.
It was great.
So it was good. So
I do want to say one more
Sure.
thank you, and that's to the Channel 14 crew at the City of Fort Collins. We've worked with them not only on that Larimer County show, but on all kinds of videos and public service announcements, and they have been fabulous to work with, and we do have an intergovernmental agreement with them, so that will continue. It's been a great relationship.
Oh, they're great. They're fantastic.
They are.
Yeah.
They do
You know, all of them.
fantastic production services.
Yeah.
They're
And we're not
amazing.
just saying that because we're here. No, seriously. They're
No, it's
good
not.
guys.
It's true.
No, they're good guys. They're really
They
fun
are.
to
They're
work with.
they're just, and they could
Yeah.
do it in a short
So
time. It's
we
amazing.
got just a few more seconds. And Danny, for the last time, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I would like you to do the closing.
I'm happy to do that. This is my last That Larimer County show, and I want to thank you for watching these shows and for letting me know that you're learning about Larimer County and that you've enjoyed learning about Larimer County. And hopefully someone else will be telling you all about Larimer County. We want to thank Tom Clayton, Public Information Specialist, and Neil Gluckman, Assistant County Manager, and of course the crew at Channel 14 Fort Collins. Thanks for joining us for That Larimer County show.